Hey everybody, I'm excited to bring you today's video about spiritual awakening and the 5 stages of spiritual awakening. This will help you determine, number 1, if you're going through one, and number 2, what phase you might actually be in. So it's a very interesting process. So we're going to start with the first stage of spiritual awakening, and that is unconsciousness. This is also known as being spiritually asleep. And what happens is the ego, we are deeply entrenched in the realm of the ego mind, okay? Our thoughts, our human thoughts. And this holds a very tight grip on us. We react to life in this phase very, very much so, rather than responding to life. Okay, so we're really rough around the edges during this phase. We anger more easily. We are triggered much more easily, things like that. So it's important that we go through this phase though, and we feel the uncomfortableness of all of this, so that we begin to crave something more. So another thing in this first phase is we feel like we really don't have any control over what is going on in our lives and what goes on around us. Like we are just, chess pieces on a board, and we're just being moved around and all of these things, and we don't have control. And we learn as we go through these phases that maybe that's not the case at all, okay? So the second phase of spiritual awakening, this is ego death. It is referred to as ego death. And what happens in this phase is the ego mind begins to break down and crumble. And what I mean by that is labels about ourselves, about other people, about life, about the world, and beliefs that we have begin to crumble and fall away. It's like we realize, it's certain things that we've believed all of our lives, and it's like, I don't know if that even really makes sense to me. And we start to question things. We just start to think, that really might be another way. There may be another way that this could be. So we start to question a lot of things, and the observer in us begins to step forward a bit. The observer. So we're looking at the world and we're looking at life and we're going, this is ego death. And it creates this massive void within us as well. And this void is necessary though for this phase as our perspective changes and as the ego dies. That void is making space for newness to come in, okay? So the ego is dying. The ego begins to die. Now this next phase, the third phase of spiritual awakening, I love this phase. It's such an interesting phase, and it's called the search. The search. Now when you start into this phase, you begin to crave answers. You are looking for the truth of who you really are, the truth of this, the truth of that. But you have this hunger and this thirst that cannot be quenched, and you start to deep dive into literature and books of everything that you can find and get your hands on. It's like, I've got to read this. I've got to, you enjoy it. I remember when I was really going through this phase, I was reading a detailed spiritual book about every 3 days, just loving it, just soaking it in. And things would resonate with my soul that never had before in my life. And, I'd just get the goosebumps and the truth chills, and it's like, whoa. And you start to see a broader picture develop during this phase of searching. So this deep diving is very personal to me because I remember it so well. And I still have times to where I'll kind of go, we go up and down. This is growth right here, this way. So I'll still go through phases where I'm deep diving again and chasing a rabbit down this hole and that hole. You guys know how this is. You know exactly how this feels. So the search, we're craving knowledge. We want answers. We want other perspectives on things. Now, the fourth phase of spiritual awakening, this is the emergence of the authentic self. The authentic parts of you begin to step forward. And so what happens here is the pretense or the facade that we may have lived most of our lives, people pleasing and all of these kinds of things, doing this because this is what so-and-so wants me to do, and just kind of dancing around on eggshells a lot of our lives to please family, friends, spouse, whomever that may be. Our authentic self begins to step forward, and we will start to put ourselves first. We will start to make decisions that honor us, where we're choosing us and not them. Okay, so heightened awareness happens during this phase too, where all of our senses, clear senses, are beginning to just blow wide open. And I've talked about that in other videos, so be sure and take a look at some of the other ones. But, the clairvoyance, the clear vision, the clear feeling, the knowing, all of these things are beginning to just blow up within you, blow open, and it's creating a new you, and it feels absolutely incredible. And with that too, it's this, here we go with this up and down, the peaks and valleys of ascension. It's not all, it doesn't always feel good. This is where the ascension symptoms really come in during this phase, okay? This is a purging phase. We are purging the old. Old wounds come up to be healed. So there can be a lot of just old energies coming up to be cleared. And anytime old energy is coming up, it can be kind of tricky, to move through and release. And we have to become very present and remind ourselves, okay, I know what this is. This is coming up to be felt. This is coming up to be acknowledged and released. So we have to be mindful and remind ourselves of these things. So those are some of the things that happen in that fourth stage. Now, moving into the final stage of spiritual awakening, the fifth stage, this is a life of alignment. What happens here is we transition into this life of interconnectedness, in which we really begin to understand our connection with our own body, mind, and soul, and everything around us. We truly feel as though we are part of this fabric of life. Things make better sense. They resonate. And there's a much more harmonious feeling and leveling out that happens in this phase. We have this connection to all things, and we might look at nature in a very different way. We might look at people in a very different way. We have so much more compassion in our hearts in this phase of awakening, because we've been cracked wide open. We've gone through this ego death. We've walked through the fire, basically. We have been initiated into this phase. And so we have compassion, and we have a very forgiving heart, and we look at people and situations in a different way. We love them no matter what, we do our best to do so and think about the circumstances and not so much, you know, the ego mind and all this emotion taking over. It's more of that observer standing there and really understanding and listening to a person with that compassionate, open heart. But that interconnectedness that we feel with the wind, with the trees, with the clouds, with the planet itself, just the planet that we live on, and all of the people around us, things just become very much more cohesive in this phase. And it's a really, for me, I am in and out of this phase often. So I'm going back between the 4th and 5th stage quite often, and we'll do that. We'll jump around sometimes. And the really cool thing, though, is that I have been on this ascension path long enough to know when I am not in that full alignment, and I'm not in the, when I need to make an adjustment, is what I'm saying. I know when I need to make an adjustment and get back into alignment with thy true self. And that's what it's all about. So those are the 5 stages of spiritual awakening. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I've enjoyed talking about it. Spiritual awakening and ascension. I'm so fascinated with these topics. And just so you know, in the next video, I will be talking about some other aspects of some of this same type jam. And I hope to see you there. That one will come out very, very soon. So I'll just see you on the next video.